Great. Can you guys see the screen
Yep.
on the slides? Okay, great. So I'm so excited about today. It's something I'm really passionate about. It's about how to plan your annual retreat. And for those of you who don't know, I'm Rebecca Brosnan, and I've had a series of roles in financial services at big listed companies, at startups, and even NGOs. And I created the Halo Planner to give other people the formula that I use to dream big, banish overwhelm, and improve every day. So today we're going to talk about what actually is an annual retreat, why you should take one, how to structure your annual retreat, and then also how to stay accountable after you get home. Um, so what is an annual retreat? So an annual retreat is a recurring event to step away from your normal routine and reflect. It's very high level, but I've underlined the most important words. Stepping away from the normal routine is the most important because in order to really get the benefits of an annual retreat, you have to be away from the pile of papers on your desk and, the incoming messages or running into people. Seclusion and isolation are really an important part of the deep reflection that you want to get. So, welcome, Doris. Um,
Hello, morning.
Yeah, morning. So, what's the purpose of an annual retreat? So, the first is a true temperature check. It's kind of the way if you want to know how much you actually weigh, you have to do it in the morning after like sleeping for 12 hours because it's not a reflection in the middle of the day when you've just had lunch or you haven't had lunch in hours. You want to get like, how am I actually doing? And I think in order to get that temperature check, you need to have a series of, quiet time, quiet reflection. The next is brainstorming new ideas. We get new ideas all the time. And in fact, I use my Halo planner a lot. It's like, oh, I could do this project, or what if I have this idea for a story, or maybe I want to work with this type of company. But oftentimes we are putting that to the side so that we can prioritize actioning the things that are really on our list are going to have the biggest impact. But we need to make room for that dreaming and the exploration of those new ideas to see if they're things that we want to take on. And so you need the space and time for that. And the next is reflection and renewal. So, the self-care pyramid in Halo has, daily habits, which we're trying to get enough sleep and we're trying to move our bodies, and weekly habits, like maybe some sort of faith practice, spiritual practice, or, social interaction. So we're trying to get renewal in our day to day. But once a year, just really pouring in rather than spending out is very important. And that can be physical, emotional, spiritual. My retreats involve a lot of massage, so it gives you an idea of what I'm thinking about for renewal. And then goal setting. So, when I do Halo, I talk to people all the time about the goals they're trying to achieve. And part of the reason the, annual retreat kind of life audit is called Getting to Impossible is we need time and space to think about those impossible goals and really what we want to achieve. So there can be a goal setting element also. So that's the definition of an annual retreat. So why do you want to take one? So I love this quote, which is indecision is the greatest thief of opportunity. And I can't tell you how many people I speak with who haven't really decided what they want. Like maybe there's like a lot of things like, oh, I kind of want this or I kind of want that. But we spend so much time not deciding, maybe because the commitment is scary or there's a high cost of what we actually want, or it means saying no to a lot of things. And it does mean that you waste a lot of time because you're not executing on those goals or dreams, or you don't have a filter for saying yes or no to things. And so taking the time to deeply reflect gets you to that answer. You can make that commitment more easily. And I just found this statistic, which is in Fortune 500 companies, ineffective decision making translates into over 530,000 lost work days. And you can imagine it, right? I mean, how many times have you been in a work meeting where they're like, oh, maybe we should go into this market or maybe we shouldn't? And so you can imagine the work that you're doing towards that goal is filled with trepidation. So you're not executing at 100% because the indecision is there. And the same translates into our lives. Amy, I feel like my pull-up program is coming up for me a little bit. It's like, do I actually want to hit this goal? So I think most of the time that we're living in our daily lives, we're trying to be all things to all people all of the time, which leads to indecision because you're like, oh, I really want to do this thing that this person asked me to do, but I also want to do this thing and I don't have the filter to say, should I say yes or no? And so then it takes a lot more time. You end up saying yes to things and then you're not satisfied with them. We're overwhelmed because the number of inputs and requests on our times and focus are much more than we can possibly actually execute on. And we're distracted. I recently did a survey on with the BritCham, and 80% of professionals feel distracted all of the time. The average person checks their phone 150 times a day, which honestly feels light compared to the week that I've had. So it's very hard to get deep, deep reflection during this noisy day to day that we live. So I always say you can do anything you want to. I really believe that, but you can't do everything at the same time. So you have to choose. Choosing is really part of hitting impossible goals. And so on an annual retreat, we allow ourselves to dream big because we have the time and space for it. We get this amazing clarity when you kind of go through a structured reflection, helps you decide on what you want to do, and then you can build up all that deep emotion to feel on fire about what you are actually trying to achieve. Okay, so before I go into the structure, does anybody have questions on the what, like the what is the annual retreat or why? All good? Very straightforward.
Oh,
Oh, good. Thanks.
Rebecca, you mentioned before that it should be by yourself or you can go with other people. Can you maybe expand on that part, or is that coming later?
Yeah, let's go into it. Um, so I think an annual retreat will slightly differ depending on what's going on with you when you take it. So if you're like exhausted and burnt out and you're just like at the edge, you're like on the edge of a mental breakdown, it's going to have more rest, renewal, and calm focus. If you're really dissatisfied while something is going on with you, like maybe you just feel like your life's a mess or you just like whatever, then you're going to maybe focus more on the life audit and like the deep, self-awareness building. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? How did I get into this situation? What do I like about my life? What do I not? Yesterday, I met with a Halo client who's in a big career transition. She's like just changed jobs after the first, 15 years and really setting intentions for that new career. And then also like maybe you're just like, oh, I want to take it to the next level. So I'll give you a structure of how like my typical um, annual retreat is structured, but it really can be a little bit different. Like I think there was one annual retreat where I was in Dubai and I was in a hotel and I basically got into bed and ordered room service pizza and like watched a series of television, like a murder mystery thing for like the first full day of the retreat because I was so burnt out, I couldn't even like ask myself the reflective questions. And it sounds weird to eat pizza and watch TV as part of the annual treat, but like that's where I was at that moment. So I just want to say it's not going to be the same for everyone every year. I wouldn't recommend you start with pizza, but it does happen. Okay, so what you need, I think regardless of what's going on with you, you're going to need journaling. And even if you're not a journaly person, I think, and I'm not somebody who's journaling every day, but there's a couple reasons why writing things down is better than just thinking about them. partially because when you write a lot slower than you think. So it forces your brain to slow down. And if you write out the words, you know how sometimes you can have a thought which kind of is a vague, like amorphous thought, and you kind of know when you write it down, you have to clarify exactly what you mean. And so your brain has to really filter. So whether you're a journaler or not, on the day to day, the annual retreat is a really time to write. I think even for myself, it's very hard to just go in with a blank journal. So you're going to want structured prompts. I took all the questions that I ask myself on my annual retreat every year and I put it in a little notebook for you guys. It's on the website. And I do this series of questions every year. There are other, like you can Google like life audit or spiritual audit or like, annual review. Like there's lots of questions you can use. These are the best ones I have found in my 20 years of taking annual retreats, and I just put them all together in like a little journal. But whatever you use, have some structure of how you're going to approach the self-reflection, but have unstructured time, because one of the things you do not want to force yourself into, like, I will do this from 3 to 5, but then I have to be at this appointment and then I have to, like, you want actually to be able to follow the flow of your unconscious. And so you might wake up and really want to write, and you might wake up and be like, I need a walk. So make sure you might have a couple, maybe a couple appointments, like but give yourself the flexibility of that time. We're so structured normally. Reading, because you're going to do a digital detox on this annual retreat. So you need an you need a stack of books. I usually bring like wisdom literature. So let's call it like the Stoics, like Seneca, or I'll bring some of my favorite, time management or motivation books. And that allows you to interact with inspiring materials to like kind of bring you through the self-reflection. So you may be reading a biography of somebody, um, and like, oh, like that really inspires me to think of this, or like, this is what I admire. So it allows you to interact with inspiring material. Sleep, you're gonna sleep. You never knew how well you were gonna sleep. Like really prioritizing rest. I know almost everybody on this call, and know, like, even if we prioritize getting rest during the year, everyone's tired. Um, Digital detox, the phone is going in the hotel safe. Even when I was working my most demanding jobs, I put the phone in the hotel safe. I allowed myself to check once in the morning and once in the evening. And if no one was dying, I put it away. I didn't respond to anything. And you have to keep that discipline, because the moment you get pulled back into that active world, you have to come out of your deep reflection, and then you have to get back in. Physical support. So even though a lot of this is a intellectual, emotional, spiritual reflection, like we will feel those things in our body. And so things to help you relax. Like I said, massage is like my top priority in physical support. Of course, I've done yoga retreats and those types of retreats, but it's because I'm quite active during my normal time. It's not something I really like. I'm not going to the gym all day, every day on my retreats. Maybe I'll do it if I'm really in the mood, but I don't make myself. And then, Ted, to your point, quiet silence, so that you can hear your subconscious, your unconscious more loudly. And that, like, I always go alone. I'll talk about that in a second. I have gone with Damien, my husband. I've gone with my best friend, and those are wonderful experiences, and they're sharing and they're deepening of relationship, but I've never gotten the same results about clarity for myself if I go with another person. And so even like I go to dinner by myself and like the waiter tries to talk to me, I totally ignore him. And like I have my journal with me, I have my book with me. You're not being rude, you're just like really investing time to yourself. So let's talk about where, where, anywhere away from home. Even if your children and your spouse go away for 3 days, like you just can't do it at home. You just can't. And um, you will just fall into a to-do list checking of boxes. And by the way, there is space for like, I'm going to spend 3 days at home going through all my drawers. And that's a wonderful exercise, which like actually makes me really happy when I think about it, but it's not the same thing. So this is like an away from home. There's nothing around you, preferably in a place where people don't like know you really well. You're not going to bump into your best friend and like have a chat. Um, so I know budgets are varying, but I really do think going away, I like to go to like a place that's in nature where it's like more beautiful so you can walk outside, see mountains, see ocean. How long? I would say 3 days minimum. So I have done mini ones where it's like just one night. And of course, yes, it's still a benefit. And I have done 5 day ones. And if you can spare 5 days, I mean, I felt like $1 million after that 5 days. But I would say you can still get that deep reflection with 3 days. And I'm going to talk about the structure. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't get away for 3 days, I have so many things to do. If you back up, it's just 1% of your year, less than 1% of your year. So it feels like a long time, but it's not. When? So part of the reason we're doing this session in October is because I think end of the year, reflecting on how the year has gone is quite a good time. So you can do your kind of annual review, although retreats usually will go deeper than just looking at one year. During a transition time is quite helpful. So if you're going like into an empty nest time or your kids like are doing this or you're changing jobs or your relationship status has changed, like that's quite helpful. But the truth is anytime you can. Like just if you have the 3 days and there's the window, take it because it is really hard to get away, of course. What? So I like a health resort. Again, because there has to be spa nearby for me. It's just one of my deep joys of getting massage. Um, there are structured ones that I've done in the past where, you get like courses, I did like like I had one where it had a meditation focus. And so I went to a few, not too many. Again, you want to keep as much unstructured time as you can and being isolated again. So with whom? So I like to go alone. Like if you're there's no matter how spiritually enlightened your partner is or your best friend is, there will be some logistical discussions if you're dealing with another person. Like, oh, are you hungry now? Should we go to dinner now? Oh no. Like it just takes you out of that. And then like because part of the beauty is the unstructuredness where you can write or think as long as you want. Like when you go for your swim, Ted, like you have nothing to be back for. So if you're just like in the ocean swimming, like you can swim until you're done swimming. And then your brain can do that. Or if you want to get out and you're like if you're swimming with someone else, you have to like, oh, we're gonna plan to go for 1 kilometer. But if you're totally on your own power, you're like, oh my gosh, I have this amazing epiphany while I'm in the water. I'm getting out right now to go write about it. So it just and that quiet, I mean, when do we not talk to other people for 3 days? And it is really powerful. And for those of you who know me well, know that I'm not a quiet person necessarily. Like I'm a chatter. So having that quiet is powerful for anyone, extrovert, introvert. It is really powerful. But like I said, I have done them with other people, and of course, there's benefits to that, but it's a different kind of experience. Does that answer your question, Ted?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So you can tell Joyce I said you should go alone. It's hard sell. It's a hard sell. All right. Oh, so before I move on, any questions so far before I kind of go into a structure? Okay. So I just wrote down like the most typical structure that I've used for my 3 day retreats. Again, over 20 years, I've done them. Sometimes I've done it. I've only been able to afford 2 days. Sometimes I did it for five a couple times, which honestly changed my life. Um, but this is the typical. So day zero, you arrive. The first thing you do is lock your phone in the hotel safe. You're not like checking to catch up with messages. Start the discipline right away. Do something physical right away. So whether that's a run or a walk or have the massage like scheduled as soon as, or like there's times that I like took a really hot bath and read a novel. You need to like get into your body out of the noise in your head. And then as you're doing this, you're going to start to wind down. One of the most important things to realize is you should expect resistance. Your brain is going to fight you. Like, I think the last retreat I did, I paced around the hotel room for like a good hour, just like doing things because I couldn't stop being productive because we are so wired. I probably had too much caffeine too, per usual, but like we're so wired to be doing things that being still and quiet, our brain will fight it. And so that's why I always call it day zero because you're winding down out of that frenetic energy into a stillness that you will be able to capitalize that deep reflection. Hey, Johanna, you have dinner and then you read. So this is again the winding down. Like almost every night that I start reading, the first 3 pages I have to reread a couple times because again, your brain is fighting it, calming down from the constantly dopamine engaged to like a quiet focus on one thing. So I just want to encourage you, like it's not gonna like you're not gonna get on this retreat that you like, spent all this money on and time and it's like gonna be perfect. Like the first day will be a little bit still crazy. So that's why I call it day zero. Okay. Day one, wake up. Do not check your phone. That's the first instruction. So, I know there's a lot of chatter in wellness is that you shouldn't check your phone first thing in the morning. I'm sort of 50-50. I don't feel very strongly about it. I don't think it ruins your life to look at your message the first thing in the morning. But during the retreat, you really want to avoid it because you're trying to reprogram your brain. So you're leaving your phone in the hotel safe. And so I like to, the place that I normally go or my favorite place to go, there's a balcony. So I go and sit on the balcony, I drink my tea, and I look out at the ocean and I kind of open the journal and just start with a blank slate. And so the first question in my journal and my system that I use for myself is, you know, how do I feel as I begin this process? Because I think again, take the temperature of where you're at. It might be like, I'm so exhausted, or it might be like, I'm so excited. And so you can really like tap into that energy of where you are at right then. And then the morning, usually I start writing, and then sometimes I'll switch back and forth between writing and reading. But it's questions like, what am I most confident about? What do I always like? Do I always accomplish what I set out to? Where in my life am I struggling? Where have I lost agency? Like, where do I feel like I don't have control? Do my family and friends see me as I see myself? I always love this question because I think, there's a religious question for Christians, which is like, if there was a trial to say that you're a Christian, like, would there be enough evidence to convict you? So it's like, am I like, I say I really prioritize my health, but actually, like, if you look at a blank slate from an external, like, is that true? Right? What am I hiding from? These are just general questions, a little bit provocative, very deep to prompt reaction, to get your brain into that like self-examination. And then basically, again, back to the unstructured, you kind of go through those high level. Mine has area of strength, areas of development. It like talks about different roles, what's meaningful to you. And basically, you do it until you're sick of it or you're not feeling that there's a benefit of doing it. And then you go and do something physical. So, again, like it will depend on where you're at. But I kind of spend the morning doing this and then I will go get breakfast or go do yoga and then have breakfast and then come back to the room. Don't check your phone again. Really try, like, pick the time you're going to check your phone, like the once a day, and really have it be as light touch as it possibly can. Maybe even come up with um a code with your partner. So if you have children or if you have something at work and somebody who's covering you, just be like, I'm not going to check. So if you absolutely like have to have me check, here's the code you use at the beginning of the email subject or the beginning of the text. Otherwise, I'm going to ignore everything, right? So like have that code with your boss or your spouse. And then I just keep doing that journaling and reflecting and reading and back and forth. And I try to pay attention to what is being most helpful. Because I'm a morning person, kind of by 3 p.m., I'm done with reflection. Like I'm just like, yeah, I'm not getting the utility out of it. So if I'm going to schedule something like maybe like a meditation lesson or if I'm going to schedule a workout, I'll do it for that late afternoon time, which is my most low energy time. Um, and so doing something physical is really helpful for me. And the next section of my audit is really looking at myself. So like physical, emotional, like do I really feel like I'm taking care of myself? So I'll look at like how I'm treating myself. And that's kind of the first day. And then I'll take a long walk, I'll have dinner, like I'll read a book. I'll do another yoga class and then I'd sleep early. The next day, much of the same. Wake up, do not check your phone. So my self-reflection always also goes through relationships, and that includes partner, family, friends, and community. So, like, this is just like, how are you interacting with the world? And I do think that's quite unique. Like, I've found very few like annual reviews or self-audit stuff out there that has a really strong look in relationships. But when I talk to people, the number one thing that they care about is relationships, family members, like volunteer roles, like relationship with your partner. Like it is actually the most important thing we do in some ways. So I actually think it's worth just looking at that and seeing like, am I showing up as my best self? Am I investing in these areas? Or are there toxic relationships that like I need to get out of my life? And then the next section is about work. So career growth, learning, financial. And so all the questions in the audit are like that. And um, again, you structure your meditation or your yoga around that. And um, day 3, you're kind of leaving. But then I like to really focus day 3 on like, okay, what am I going to do next? So for me, the last morning of the retreat is always the goal setting. And I tell you guys, I have made so many huge decisions. Like when I was in investment banking, like it was after a 3-day retreat that I decided like I need to leave this career. Like this is not the career I want forever. Like there are things I like about it, but there are things that I don't like about it. And so I made that decision and it took me 18 months, but I eventually like found my other path. But the decision was made after this 3-day reflection because based on how I felt about what I was doing and like what the work required and it was just not what I wanted. And so the impossible goal becomes, and what I did was apply to graduate school. So like I made that decision there, right? So you're kind of writing out like this, I've spent 3, day 0, 1, 2 in deep reflection about all the different parts of my life. And now on the last day, I am deciding. And one of the things I would say, I almost like as you go back into the world, take immediate action on the decisions you've made because you will have so much clarity at the end of the 3 days. Don't be like, oh my gosh, I've decided to leave investment banking, so I'm gonna like, it doesn't mean like I'm gonna do nothing about it. So I think I like got downloaded the applications for the graduate school like that day and I looked up the deadlines and I made a plan because you will have that determination after those 3 days. It will be so clear to you what you want and what you need to do. You need to capitalize that and start the momentum and then start to go out. So, anybody have structure questions on the structure of what you're doing on those 3 days?
I do have a question, Rebecca. Not to be too type A, which I'm sure nobody else on this call is either,
No one who uses
uh
Halo is type A.
but just in terms of so I don't have like a full 3 days that
Yeah.
I can take for it right now. And so I guess my question is, and not from a sense of like I'm trying to rush through it, but what would you say is kind of like the minimum
Yeah.
time per section just so that you don't end up, you know, rushing through or sort of misallocating your time?
So I know you have the book. Your book arrived, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So what I would do is I would skim through and highlight the things that you think are most relevant for you right now in the season of life. So, you might focus more on partner because you're still establishing that relationship. Karen got married last year. So, you might focus more on that. Or like if you look at the career stuff, like career is broken down into four buckets, and then though each of those are broken down into four buckets. You may just literally highlight those sections. I also would say there are times that I've gone where I really haven't done the full audit because I was so burnt out or tired that it wasn't like I didn't have 3 days. It was just like I didn't have the energy to go that deep on everything. And so I would say if you feel short on time or rushed, there's no like, I have to finish every question. Like you might skip. So for example, like the strength, if you're more focused on like if you feel like you're doing well with what you're doing with yourself, you may focus more on relationships or work. If you feel like you're really happy with your career, but your self-care is a mess, you might like do that whole section first. So I think these are really deep questions. Everyone who's gone through this audit and tried to do it like a journaling in the morning, it doesn't work. Like you can't dip in and out of like, where do you find most meaning in your life? Like it's just a deeper question. And so I would just prioritize the things that you think you're either most unhappy about or want to focus most on. And so just flip through before you go and just highlight those sections and then skip around. Um, yeah. And if you want to separately message me about like what you're thinking and then what you want to focus, I can tailor it for you also. So then you can feel like you get an assignment and you're like checking off all your boxes and you don't feel like you're skipping anything.
You know me so well.
Yeah. Other questions?
So what about audiobooks? Because I listen to a lot of books. Is that breaking the digital detox rule?
I don't think it is as long as you can really like not even look at the other things.
Just don't check your mail. Don't
Like,
just turn on the
yeah,
book.
just the audiobook. I mean, there are a couple versions of the Kindle that have audiobook functionality on
Okay.
them. And so if you're listening all the time, it might be worth an investment and setting it up before you go so that you don't have to look at the phone. You can just have the audiobook on Kindle.
Okay. And I have a separate tablet I can use that is not Wi-Fi. Well, it's Wi-Fi only, and I don't have my phone on it.
I think it's fine. I think it would be good for like walking, like with the
Yeah.
audiobook. I think that's good. But one of the things I would just caution, because I listen to a lot of audiobooks also, and I find them very helpful. a couple things. One is if you're listening to something all the time, just be conscious of how much silence you're getting. Because I do think the
Oh,
silence
yeah.
is part of the escape, one. And two, make sure the audiobooks you're listening to are in line with the emotions, thoughts, feelings you want to have on the retreat. And lastly, what I find if I'm listening to like a really cool audiobook, I get lots of ideas. So if I'm listening to an audiobook walking, and part of the point of this is to have self-reflection, bring a blank notebook or like walk in a place where you can stop and write down those thoughts because those are gold. Um,
Okay.
like whenever I'm on my walk, I actually record audio notes to myself that because I'm like, oh, this idea or this thought or whatever. So do be conscious of like if you're in a deep reflective mode and then you're listening to something like super inspiring, you'll have more idea generation, which you want to capture. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about Amy? Do you have any questions? Is all clear? No? Crystal, what about you? You okay?
Rebecca, maybe one other question.
Mm.
Um, so we have obviously flexibility of the location, but you made some references to some of the things that you've done, and it sounded most of the retreat locations were kind of you said kind of referred to like nature, like seeing the beach or being somewhere where you could go outside. But then you also kind of referred to some like hotels, which for some reason in my head I was thinking like, oh, you go to a hotel somewhere that could even be in a city.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm, 'cause I'm trying to imagine what it
Yeah.
would be like. I mean, is there a strong preference to something where you're really isolated in nature, or is it really just being away?
Yeah, I mean, being away is the biggest flex. So that's like, if you think about like how to optimize, like the biggest optimization is leaving. That's the biggest. And so the times I've done it in like a city hotel was like, if I wanted 3 days, that's where I could be. So like I had to be in Dubai for meetings. There was no other long weekend I could take. So that's what I got, you know? Because of course, traveling to faraway places adds in its own time. So if you're going away for 3 days and you're traveling 12 hours to do it, my favorite place to go is Shivasam in Thailand. So that's like a 3 hour flight and then a 3 hour drive. So that's like a full 6 hours in and out. Like for Hong Kong based people. It's also very expensive. So it's not always possible for everybody at all seasons. Um, I have done it in like I've definitely had clients do it like in Tokyo because they're there for meetings and they had to spend a weekend and so they spent I think if you're away from home you can still get a lot of benefit. But and walking in a city with noise canceling headphones like you can find parks, you can find desert, like you can like in Dubai, you can go on a desert trip where you're like walking in a desert. As long as the priority is silence, isolation, reflection, I think you can get a lot of benefits from doing it. But my preference would always be to go to a natural place only because like I think the neuroscience is clear. Like even you see water, your stress goes down. Like any water, it could be a lake, it could be a stream, it could be a waterfall. Your stress level goes down more with water than anything else. There's a book that I read last year, which I can highly recommend called The Nature Fix. And it's about what happens to our brain when we're in nature, like shapes, like the fractals of leaves, like the shapes of leaves, like calm us down. Like the number of bird calls we can hear at once, like lowers blood pressure by increasingly number of points. So I think nature is necessarily calming for all humans, but we live in a practical world, like take it where you can get it type of thing. So um I have friends who have done I did a health spa in Massachusetts called Canyon Ranch. which was good, but the challenge with some of the health spas is you go and there's like a package of stuff to do. And so my brain, back to Karen, will be like, I have to do all the things included in the package, which actually isn't the point. Like doing a private Pilates class, although is wonderful, like that's not what, for this purpose, that's not why you're there. And so you just want to make sure that if you're going to, that's why I say it can be structured, unstructured. Like Johanna's doing a yoga retreat, like, and there's like go to the yoga. And like, if that's what brings you calm and quiet, then that works. But I mean, like, for example, yoga's hard for me. So like, if I go to a yoga retreat, it's like challenging and I'm like having to deal with the self-loathing of the fact that my calves aren't flexible enough, you know? But there's a lot of people who get real still and calm from yoga. And so I think it's gonna depend on you. Yeah. But I can highly recommend Shivasam. Like there's the farm in the Philippines I know people have done. But again, that has a more detox driven priority. So, you know, you're doing like a fast or which can be part of this. I mean, fasting actually gives you a lot of clarity, but you just want the emphasis to be on the reflection part and that everything else fits around that deep reflection.
Great, thanks.
Cool. Other questions?
Rebecca, hey, I
Yeah,
just want to ask, like, I often sometimes find myself a bit tricky when I'm answering those personality tests. For example, like
yeah,
MBTI one,
yeah,
for
yeah,
example. Yeah, I would just maybe unconsciously answer my personality assessment based on my ideal self rather than my actual self.
yeah.
Do you also like sometimes have that situation? And what's your best advice to approach this differently? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So first of all, I just went to a Chinese medicine doctor and he was asking me about my diet and I was like, I don't eat carbs, I don't drink alcohol. And then like the next day I ate almost an entire chocolate cake and like drank champagne. So it's like I think we always that's in human nature, okay? By the way, I mostly don't eat carbs or drink alcohol and it wasn't even my birthday, like I have no excuse. So in each of the sections, I have put this. Can you see this? Let me stop sharing for a sec. Although I don't know if it will totally mess up everything. Can you see this book? Can you see the kind of pictures? You might not be able to see the words. So in the self, relationships, and work sections, there's a self-assessment. This is where am I at now and where do I want to be? Okay. So actually, you can even start here. You can start where do I want to be? And then kind of put where you're falling short. So for example, and this is also where Halo can be really helpful. So for example, like I want to be a really present mother. Like I want to be with my kids. I'm making career and personal decisions that are sacrificing things that I care about and want to do so that I can be present with my kids, right? And you have to define what that is. So I have defined, you know, putting them to bed minimum 4 days a week, right? I have defined reading to each of them every day. I have defined it like sitting with my son 3 out of 5 nights to do homework together. You know, like I have defined what that means in this season for like my kids are, right? Spending, you know, going to music lessons with them, whatever, the list of things that I have defined. And then I track those things. So if you have been using Halo for a little while, you can be like, okay, I said I was going to do this. Did I do it? Right. And then you can say, okay, I do it 50% of what I want to do. So that's not nothing. You celebrate, hey, like I'm a busy working mom. I've got lots of stuff going on. I read to my kids, you know, 4 out of 7 days, but I said I was going to do it 7 days. And then you say, what are the things keeping me from doing that? Is it work calls? Okay, so if it's evening work calls, then I'm like, okay, so what can I do to change? Like, how do I get there? Oh, so this is what I do. I know if I have an evening call, I read to my daughter before breakfast. right? So I think this is about defining your ideal self. Like, actually, we should all be defining, because what your ideal self is going to be different than mine. Like, maybe your kids don't care about like hate reading, or like I've started cooking with my daughter in the morning. So maybe that's going to be our quality time. And the reading will just take a back seat. We'll do it as a nice to have, but like the real quality time will be the making breakfast together. Um, and so part of the journey of self-reflection is like, am I really showing up the way I intend to? And let me tell you, you don't get to the real truth on your first try. Like, self-awareness is a building muscle. So it's very hard to confront the worst parts of ourselves. And I think defining what ideal looks like is the first step. And then try to take as honest a view of is like, how often do I do this? And if the answer is you don't know, then actually you're like, okay, I've defined my ideal self, and that ideal self translates into doing these things. Now I'm going to use my halo to track whether I actually do them. And I'm going to set up those mini reflections to whether I do it. And this is like, does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, it really helps a lot
Okay.
because I have been using Halo, as you have known, for like a month, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been trying to really translate all this into actions, and I think now I feel like okay, I'm gaining more control. We'll definitely like go through more when I meet you up. But
Yeah.
then yeah, it's really important for like these are really important tips for me to that you just share to sort of like help me on the self-reflection because that is like the biggest resistancy that I might have forecast if I'm getting this annual retreat at the end of the year. So yeah, thank you very much for addressing this.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, like I said at the very beginning, expect resistance. This is not an easy process. I mean, there's a reason, I was just watching a YouTube with, it's like a fake therapy interview with a type A person. And it's like, oh yeah, I don't like to be quiet because that's when all the bad thoughts come up, right? Because when we're type A and we're achieving everything and we're like on the knife edge of being totally overwhelmed, actually admitting that we're not doing well is a bad feeling. Like, actually admitting that you're falling down on the things you promised yourself is not a great feeling, right? And so in some ways, doing the annual retreat allows you the emotional safety to really ask yourself these questions and like be honest with yourself. And this is also not an opportunity to be like, I suck at everything, like whatever. This is an opportunity to be like, who do I want to be and what steps am I taking towards it? And so that, I think, is the perfect segue into the accountability. So the self-reflection is not supposed to be navel gazing. It is supposed to lead you to the and so what. And that's why the last day is the goal setting day, right? So it's like, say I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? And I had this, I serve on the board of a company that I represent, the IFC. And every year we go away for a conference at the IFC. And I was there this summer. And I'll tell you, after those 2 days, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I was so on fire with that deep dive. And I was like, why am I wasting my time with anything else? Whatever. And that's kind of how you should feel about after your annual retreat, which is like, okay, I'm not great at this, but I'm great at this, but this is what really makes me come alive. And so you set the goal with that clarity. And so the first thing, like I said, you want to take immediate action. So like, if you've made a decision, like say Ted has like 12 jobs. Like, I always think I have a lot of jobs, but Ted, you have like a lot of roles. Like, it might be that you get to the end of this 3 days and you're like, you know what? This one doesn't really excite me anymore. Like, I'm just going to let it go. Like, you kind of take action immediately to do that. It might not like, you might not want to write an email and be like, I quit, F you, but you do want to be like, hey, can we have a coffee when we get back? You know, so like you start the ball rolling on some of the decisions you've made. The next thing is you're tracking the progress daily. Um, I have started actually even putting my goals. Oh, wait, wrong way. No, I'm like exactly in front of it. I've actually started putting my goals on Post-its here so I can see them every day. But obviously you write them in the beginning of the halo and then you're tracking your progress every day so that it stays current. Because I tell you, you will leave your retreat with so much clarity and then you will immediately be dragged into everything. So you want to keep that progress, that accountability. Make sure you're every quarter you take a half day a day to really look at that progress and connect back, like reread the journal that you've written in or like whatever you use to write and reread it and you will be transported back to that emotional state that gave you the clarity of what you really want. And then you can also have an accountability partner. So, like, if you've come out of this retreat and you're like, I've decided X, Y, and Z, you tell someone, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your business partner, maybe it's, your board chair, whatever it is. Maybe it's one of your Halo friends, maybe it's me. I feel like I'm the accountability partner to a lot of Halo clients because I'm like, oh, but you said this last time. How's the progress on that? Um, and you that so that it can help you stay accountable. Yeah. Q&A.
Hi, Rebecca.
Yeah.
I have a
Hey, Crystal.
question. I'm actually very new to Halo. My books haven't even arrived, but I'm trying to learn these concepts, and this annual retreat thing is very new to me. I'm just wondering, like, if my partner, my husband, would be quite, you know, um, I'm not sure if I can gain his support because if I will be away from a few days, of course, he
Yeah,
has to take care of a lot of stuff and there's a lot of sacrifice that I can
of course.
expect. And he is like, he has no idea about Halo Planner. I haven't even explained to him because my books haven't arrived. So, can I get some tips from you how to gain your partner's support or how to gain his buy-in? If you have to step away from home for a few days without checking phones.
Sure, sure. Well, the first is you can say, I really want to reflect on how I can be a better wife to you. I mean,
That's
I
amazing.
always come out of, how sometimes, marriage. I was taking a walk with a friend and I was like, marriage is a compromise. He's like, every day marriage is a compromise. I think when we get so busy and we have kids and we have stuff going on, like your relationship in some ways can be a little bit transactional. Um, and I always come out of my annual retreat loving my husband more, being more committed to quality time, like thinking, I always ask for his feedback, like, how can I be a better wife? Like, what can I do in my day? Like, I think you can put those deep reflections into that. So that's like number one. I think, lots of people go on like church retreats or spiritual retreats, like with groups of other people. And sometimes, like, it seems easier, like, to approve a girls' trip or like a church retreat or like a work retreat offsite than it does, like, oh, you're just going away for yourself because culturally it feels selfish. So I think if you say this is like a work offsite for the family, I think the other thing I would say is if it feels too hard, like, and you might want to try like one night away. Like, you don't, like, yes, I'm saying that, okay, the first 3 days are like the 3 day structure is the ideal. But if it feels too hard for you or for him, like where your family's at, like how you've divided the household responsibilities, like, it doesn't mean you have, like, one day you can still get benefit. I think 3 days is best, but I tell you, it was really hard. And I went on my first one long before I had kids. And actually, before I got married, and I decided to marry Damien on one of these retreats. So and it was hard for me to go away, and I didn't have kids or a husband to be responsible for. So I think, um, so have you ordered this one?
I only got the annual package with
Okay.
4 books.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I do think, I mean, getting buy-in for anything we want to do with our spouses is like a very individual couple related process. So when Ted tells Joyce he's going by himself away to like an amazing spa, like that will be one conversation. And when I tell my husband like, hey, like I'm going to spend X dollars to go into Shivasam because like it really matters to me. Like those are all conversations, but I think I always come back. The proof is in the pudding, so to say. So like I come back a happier, more engaged, more devoted individual wife and professional. And so like once I did my first one, it was not hard to convince my husband that it was worth the sacrifice. But if it feels like too much for either of you, try one day first. And then you and I can talk individually about which sections you want to focus on or like how you want to structure the one day. If you've never gone away from one day totally by yourself, like it's still worth it. Um, just to like scratch that band-aid. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I'll just go easy first.
Yeah.
Maybe starting with one day. I think that's
Yeah.
a brilliant idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And tell him you'll be a way better wife when you come back because you
Of
will
course.
be.
Sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Other questions? Okay. So I'm available to stay on, but I want to end on time to respect your time. The number one takeaway I would like everybody to do is pick the dates. Pick the dates. Right now, write it down, look at your calendar, even if it's like next November, November 2026, if it's like April, if it's February, if it's like, but just, it doesn't have to be next month. Like pick a date, commit to it, and then book something. And somebody told me really early in my career, if you book it, you may have to cancel, but if you don't book it, you will never go. So that's how I close. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, comments, if you want something personalized, if you want some ideas, I'm happy to brainstorm. And I'll stay on the line for a little longer if people have questions.
I have to go, but thank you, Rebecca. This is a huge help.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thanks, Janet.
Thanks, Rebecca. That
Thank
was great.
you.
Bye, guys.
Yes, bye.
Thank you.
Vega, I want to go to South Africa with you. Bye, guys.
I want to go on my annual retreat in Thailand.
Yeah, come.
That sounds great.
I'm sure the World Bank
I
has some projects there.
Yeah, they're really pushing us to travel right now. That's that's
How's
where the
it
budgets
going?
are.
Did I stop?
Good.
Yeah, I stopped the recording.
Oh, we're still recording, I
No,
think.
I
It's
think
all good.
oh, it is. Yeah, how do I stop?